Welcome to AstroFic, your dose of fun, relatable astrology content, where we apply astrology to fictional characters to find out why they're like that. I'm your host, Celeste V, and this week we're talking about Effie Trinket from The Hunger Games. What a queen. We all just love Effie, don't we? I really don't think I've ever seen anyone talk bad about her. But before we get into that, a little update. If all goes as planned, this episode should be coming out Friday, April 18th. A mere week after the last episode came out. Isn't that crazy? If it worked out that way, isn't it crazy? A new episode just a week later? Unheard of for AstroFic, really. But the truth is, I'm just feeling very motivated. All this fire energy coming into the air right now, but also because my very good friend Frankie is helping me run an Instagram account on AstroFic. And I just decided to dive all in and take all of this really seriously. I've kind of just been dabbling and dipping my toe in the water and not really committing too hard, but I have been receiving signals that maybe it's time for full speed ahead on this stuff. So here we go. If you have not already, please follow astrofic.jpeg on Instagram. And also you can find AstroFic on Substack. That is going to be the new hosting platform for it. It should still be available everywhere you can get podcasts, and it will always be for free. But we did switch to hosting on Substack, and we're working on making our little Substack page pretty and fun and inviting, and I'm going to start posting blog posts. And I don't just do astrology. I know I've kind of talked about it here or there, but I do other things in not only in spirituality with witchy stuff. I do tarot readings, I do birth chart readings, I can do spells and things of that nature, but usually that's reserved for personal use only. And I also recently got my bachelor's in psychology, and it's grad season right now, and I have so much going on because I won a pretty big award for my scholarship. And even though I didn't get into grad school, there's a lot of accomplishments and things are still moving in my life. It didn't stop with those rejections. So yeah, that's kind of just where my life is at and where AstroFic is at in that in my universe, I guess. And I'm kind of pulling it a little bit closer and working on it a little bit harder. So I hope you all enjoy what I put out and tell your friends. All right, enough about me, enough of my personal podcast diary. Let's get into the episode and let's talk about Miss Effie Trinket, the Queen. As always, to give you a little taste, I'll let you know right now that her sun is in Virgo, because of course, and her moon is in Leo. Isn't that delicious? But as always, we are going to start with the rising sign. The rising sign sets up the entire birth chart and is also known as the ascendant or the first house. So we go in order of the houses and make our way around. She has her first house, her rising sign, in Taurus. Of course, all the fashion girlies are Venus ruled. If you listen to the episode on Tigress, you would know. They're all Venusians. Sorry, not sorry. That's just like a rule of the universe. I think that Effie's Venusian influence is different than Tigress, though, in that she is much more bought into the idealism of the capital. Tigress was poor for a long time. She didn't believe in all that stuff, but Effie is a true patriot. She's much more materialistic and into the influence of high society. But being an earth sign makes her a very hard worker, which she absolutely is, as we see in Sunrise on the Reaping. In Sunrise on the Reaping, spoilers, sorry if you haven't read it. I can't do the Hunger Games series and not throw in the Sunrise on the Reaping people right after the book comes out. Sorry. I'm going to throw in all that influence. Anyways, the people, her sister, Effie's sister, whose name I've already forgotten. Sorry, Queen. And the partner, the lab partner, the project partner, whatever, speaks so highly of Effie and her work ethic. It is so honestly inspiring. Like she and and you know what? That's a little bit of my own internalized American propaganda shining through, because Effie is 100% doing the pick yourself up by your bootstraps thing and trying to achieve what we know as the American dream. And she's successful at it because she's in the capital and she's in a position of relative privilege where she can do things like go to university, you know? So yeah, that's her rising sign, and she doesn't have any other Taurus placements. Sorry, not sorry. Taurus also I think is so funny, because I think Effie is quite stubborn and hard-headed actually. But Tauruses can do it in a way that is like endearing, you know? It just makes you love them more. You're like, you're such a bitch, I love you, kind of thing. But it's not even that intense. Like the word bitch is a little intense, and Effie probably wouldn't like anyone saying it around her. Okay, moving on. We have to move on because I'll talk about this forever. Her second house is in Gemini, and she certainly does not have any placements there, nor does she have any placements in the third house of Cancer, which may be a little bit surprising, but I don't think her maternal instincts come in the form of Cancer placements. You know what I mean? However, she does have placements in her fourth house, such as her moon sign, which I teased at earlier, which is in Leo. I wrote down unintentionally so many parallels to Tigress in this chart. My bad, guys. They're just like two sides of the same coin. Isn't that wild? Suzanne Collins is a genius. That's the entire first bullet point. There's only one comma in this. I'll be honest, I don't quite remember what this is referring to. But I think that they kind of just have the same big three mixed up. I think they have some variation of Virgo, Leo, Taurus. But for Effie, her moon, Leo moon, her emotions and inner world are intended to be very private because it's in the fourth house, and the fourth house is like the home. It's kind of, the fourth house is giving like the secret sanctum, you know? It's the place you go that nobody knows. It's just for you, and it's where you like really truly recharge and think through things and stuff like that. And that's like the energy that the fourth house gives me. So to me, that means that her emotions are like intended to be very private, like her inner thoughts, her inner world. None of that is supposed to be out on display for people. But when it is like only in the most heart-centered way. And she's very graceful with it. Lions are very graceful. So like when Effie cries, she's got like a handkerchief to her eye to soak up the tears so her makeup doesn't run, and she's just like got this beautiful like little puckered up face because it's Elizabeth Banks, you know. And she just, it's a performance, but not in the derogatory kind of way. Like it is just her being, you know what I mean? Isn't that great? With Leo also in the fourth house, there's a like glamorous leaning in her private life. And when she, in the movies, in the canon of the movies, but not the books, when she gets put into District 13, she gets brought there. It was so hard on her. Not having access to any of her favorite products and luxuries is very hard for her, I think. Like she'll make do because she's a Taurus rising. She's a double earth sign. But like she's not happy about it. Why would you ever think she'd be happy about it? Okay, let's see. There's a few more placements here. Well, not a few. There's a couple more. She may have a stellium in Leo in the fourth house. Just saying. Okay, her next placement here is her Leo Venus in the fourth house. It's giving her love is private, I fear. She's only a lover girl in the dark. She's just so proper, you know? We just never see her flirt with anyone, really. Like, for reals. Like, yeah, there's like a little bit of stuff between Mitch and Effie in the movies, but like that's kind of an actor thing. Like there wasn't really any of that subtext in the books, I don't think. And just despite how private she is with her affection, when someone has her heart, she is wholly devoted to them and gives them all of her attention. That's what a Leo Venus is about. It's about finding that person who makes you, the star, want to shine the spotlight on them. You know, it's so gorge. I love a Leo Venus, you guys. Okay, her last placement in this house is her Uranus in the Leo fourth house. There is a bit of a hidden little fieriness to her that not many people can see or have historically seen. There's a little bit of a snappiness within her, some claws, if you will, or the bull's horns, as she's a Taurus rising. This placement is just really giving the energy of a woman who would fight back tooth and nail if she was being kidnapped. I would say you know what I mean, but like I don't think anyone knows what I mean by that. It's like but it's like a surprise, you know, because it's Uranus. Like this is the kind, like she looks like the kind of woman who wouldn't, but then she really, really does, and it surprises the attacker, and she gets away. You know what I mean? Nobody gets me. I also think that this points to her various connections with sponsors in the capital. I could see her needing sponsorship of sorts earlier in her life before she was established and stable in her career. And they don't say anything about this in Sunrise on the Reaping, but like, who was paying for her school? Who's paying for her sister's school? Are they on scholarship? Like, it doesn't sound like their family still had a lot of money. I mean, it's really hard for any family to still have a lot of money after the dark days, apparently, according to the history we've been told as the readers. So, yeah, I think that she has a sponsor. I think that she has connects with sponsors. Not sure if they're all necessarily people who would sponsor in the games, but sponsors nonetheless. Money is money in this society, in our society too. Let's see. That was her fourth house. She has one placement in her fifth house in Virgo, which is her sun sign. Listen, you hear Virgo sun, you think organization, you think detail oriented. neat to the point where it's bordering on people saying you have OCD. She's an organizational queen. What can I say? She literally manages teenagers for a living. That's her job. Do you know how hard that is? We should be paying teachers so much money because wrangling, corralling, dealing with kids of any age, even teenagers, so fucking hard. I do wonder what she does in the off season though, when like it's not the games. Like game makers and stuff, they have to make the arena and all those kinds of like behind the scenes things. But what does Effie do? Anyways, I think that with her son in the fifth house, she's actually very creative in how she manages her tributes, especially when they're open to it. Like PETA, like I think she really enjoys writing their speeches and everything for their public appearances. She likes helping to style them. And I think also she is good at pivoting her, I guess, parenting style. She's not overbearing on the tributes, but that's because PETA and Katniss are, older teenagers. I think PETA's like 17 or 18 and Katniss is 16 in the first book. No, they're the same age, right? They're in the same, they were like in the same grade, right? So they're both 16. Anyway, but because they're so much older and because Katniss is so rebellious, Effie's like much more withdrawn. But I think that if Effie did have Prim or somebody like Prim as one of her tributes, she would be so much more loving and motherly and doting. It just depends on what the tribute like needs and what they would accept, or what she thinks they would accept anyways. Also with her Virgo sun, she recognizes the worth in doing things by the book. She has very great respect for a rule book and she enjoys following it. She might make a great dungeon master, to be honest with you. And she definitely like prides herself on her tidiness and her proper and polite nature. It seems like, I don't know, it seems like Effie is kind of not a relic of the past because she's not that old, but she is a mark of an older generation, because we see newer generations of capital citizens like partying hard. And yeah, there are always hard partiers in various generations throughout the books in the Hunger Games that we've read, but they're usually like, historically, the people who party really hard have been looked at like kind of gross, kind of like, oh, you do that, even by other capital citizens. But when PETA and Katniss go to that pre-quarter quell party or whatever, all of the people there are partying so hard. And really only like Plutarch, Snow, and Effie have any kind of disdain for it, aside from the district people. And it seems kind of like an old school thing of like, these kids are so like overindulgent, they don't know anything. And Effie didn't grow up in the worst of times in the capital, but by the sounds of it, they also didn't have a completely smooth upbringing like Plutarch Heavensby might have, On to her sixth house in Libra, where she has one placement, which is her Mercury sign. And she is simply another queen who only wants peace and harmony. She's not about making waves, which is quite hilarious considering how much she loves Katniss, PETA, and Haymitch, aka the three of the most rebellious people in the capital, and certainly the three most rebellious people in all of District 12. I think that this placement also makes her very good at managing everyday conflicts and awkward encounters, and she always leaves a situation with everyone feeling pleased. And if she doesn't, I think that she feels she's maybe failed in some way, like she is writing mental notes to herself of her own feedback of how she could handle a situation like that better in the future. She strives for harmony in her daily life, definitely has a very strict routine, and also always adheres to and thrives when she does stick to it. Sorry, I said that weird, but she has a very strict routine that she always adheres to and thrives when she does adhere to it. Yeah, she's definitely the kind of person that has like a 30-step morning routine and a 15-step nighttime routine. She makes sleepy girl mocktails and does face masks, or does like the red light thing that makes you look like you're in the Jabberwockies. You know what I'm talking about. And something that I really admire and almost envy about Libras is that I think that they can find a connection in like almost any situation. There are a lot of signs that can do this, but I think the way that Libras do it is particularly elegant and graceful and almost so slight that you wouldn't notice it. So yeah, that's her Libra house. Her 7th house is in Scorpio, and though it pains me to say, I didn't give her any Scorpio placements. I love Effie, but she's so not me that like that's why I love her. Her 8th house would be in Sagittarius. She also does not have any Sagittarius placements. But her 9th house is in Capricorn, and believe it or not, she does have one placement here. She has Chiron in Capricorn in the 9th house. This placement is 100% me being purely speculative. This has almost no backing. But with that in mind, let's discuss. Panem tends towards being a pretty conservative country, and I could see Effie's earliest wound having to do with her idealistic view of her communities and being proven wrong about how much people in power care about others. Like I said, she's very patriotic. She's very much like picking herself up by the bootstraps, trying to play the game the right, quote unquote, right way, and hopefully come out on top. But she's constantly being bugged by these ideas that the way she sees and has been taught the world isn't actually the way that it is. And it's rooted in a tradition that they as a society, as a people, have long outgrown. And so now there's an issue. This is something that she could really easily ignore as she grows, even to the point of like forgetting this kind of foundational lesson that she's been taught over and over again until she's confronted with it as an adult. I think that maybe even her job of taking care of these disadvantaged children sent to die is her sub or consciously atoning for the fact that she can't really help them. Like, she came to that conclusion a long time ago, but she thinks that if she can take care of them as she ferries them off to their deaths, that she is doing something that will put a point towards restoring balance to her world. I don't know if she actually believed that, or if it's just, some kind of lie that she's told herself so many times that it sounds real, it feels real, and it's just how she goes and how she's able to keep going without losing herself to grief and guilt. So I think that this Chiron placement, this wound, is ultimately coming from a place of believing that she cannot change society and that she has to do good from the inside, or whatever people who become cops say. Sorry for the stray, but I low-key mean it, and I'm not sorry. Anyways, yeah, I think that placement is purely speculative, but that's what I That's what I think is happening in her chart, personally. I recently saw promo pics from Mockingjay Part 1, and it's all of the side characters in their District 13 clothes facing certain ways. And it said that like Haymitch and Finnick are facing towards the future and Coin is facing towards the past because she's facing the opposite direction of them. And then Plutarch is kind of like turned out, turning towards where Haymitch and Finnick are looking, but like still kind of his body language is facing forward to where Coin is. But Effie is square in the middle, facing the camera. And I saw somebody say that Effie is in between deciding which path the future should take, of like this path of progress or this path of tradition. And in the picture, I don't know, maybe it's just my interpretation of it, but she looks a little like surprised. And so I think that's what really sold me on this Capricorn 9th house placement for her Chiron. But we should move on to her 10th house because there's a couple of placements in here. So she has her 10th house in Aquarius. And I gave her an Aquarius Mars because I thought that was really cool. I think that she might do things a tad bit unconventionally in others' eyes, which is hard for her at times. And it's extra frustrating because with her Mars in the 10th house, it's like every action, every little thing that she does is like somehow on display for all the world to see. It's like when you're kind of minding your business, but like all your family is talking about you on Facebook posts, public Facebook posts. That's kind of the vibe of this. I think that she probably gets too close to her tributes every year, and not only does that, but also does other things to keep up her humanitarian, like philanthropist image. And I also don't like entirely think it's an image. Like I do think that she has this core belief that is rooted in kind of like philanthropy and humanitarian acts. And I think that she just doesn't fully realize it. And it's in very like niche things. You know what I mean? She would never openly brand herself as a traitor or a rebel, but she's treated as such because of her close relationship with the Mockingjay and pays the price for it. She is, in book canon, she's imprisoned and interrogated between Catching Fire and Mockingjay. Not by District 13, but by the Capitol because of how close she was with Katniss. Obviously she didn't know anything because Katniss would never tell her anything, and neither would Haymitch for that matter. But it is very visible to others that she has an open heart for these people and she cares for them very deeply, and a lot of her actions tend towards helping them and keeping them alive. I think that this placement also has something to do with her family who disgraced the Trinket name. I have no idea what they did, but I know it was out there enough. It has to be like Aquarian in some way. Some people have theorized they were cannibals. Some people have theorized that they were rebels and she was simply lying in Sunrise on the Reaping, which I don't put past her. She has a Libra Mercury. That doesn't mean she's incapable of lying. It means she's going to do whatever the hell she needs to in order to maintain a status quo and balance. And her Aquarius Mars is pretty okay with that as a course of action. So just some, that's just something to think about when we do our headcanons of Effie Trinket in the future and we write little fanfic about her. Just something to think about. Okay, so she has another placement here in the Aquarius 10th house, which is her Neptune. And again, while she would never openly brand herself as a traitor or a rebel, she absolutely 100% has rebellious ideals and thoughts. She just knows it's best to keep them to herself. She knows that the only way they can imprison you for thought crime is if you speak your thoughts out loud. You know what I mean? So she keeps it to herself because they still haven't found a way to read her mind. But she has you simply cannot convince me that Effie Trinket did not care that the other kids in the districts didn't get to eat. Of course she cared. She's just happy that she gets to have 2 kids eat really well before they eventually die. And she watches a boy that has now become a man drink himself into a stupor until next year. It's also so like heartbreaking in a way, in many ways actually. But I think that this like quality about her is why it was relatively easy to get her to join District 13 in the movie. It didn't require much suspension of disbelief from the audience because it felt quite plausible, because we know that she cares and that Effie can maybe envision a better future. This placement is also low-key giving someone with a 10-year plan, but like it's buck wild. And what I mean by that is like it starts normal, like I'm going to go to school. And then it's like, and that's how by year 5, I'll have enough money to pursue my true dream of cranberry farming. Like, girl, how'd we get here? Like, I know that she doesn't really actually have a crazy 10-year plan because she's been working in District 12 for 25 years as a mentor. But she definitely gives a vibe of somebody who could potentially, if they were to make a 10-year plan like that, that's what it would have been like. I think if we had like asked university aged Effie her 10-year plan, it would have been crazy. I just love that placement. Okay, let's move on to her 11th house, which is in Pisces. She has her Jupiter here. She has another placement too, but let's start with her Jupiter. Whether she likes it or not, she can meld into any group very easily. Like, as long as she's not, I don't want to say as long as she's not all done up, but like, I think that she could really be a master of disguise if she tried. You know, she just likes to stand out, which I won't fault her for. But she has the potential to be a master of disguise. She's very good at becoming another face in the crowd, even if her actual desire and intention is to stand out. So sorry, queen. She's also very well connected in the capital, possibly being seen as just a very delightful, stylish, enterprising young woman who has been stuck in District 12 for 25 years. Not stuck, but like not stuck in either, but like that's her domain, you know? And this is what makes me wonder what she does in the freaking off season. Like, does she do seasonal resort work as a waitress? Like, what is Effie Trinket doing the other like 9 months of the year? And I think that this placement also enhances her ability to connect with people. She can find points of connection really, really, really easily with her sharp Libra Mercury intellect combined with her Jupiter in the 11th house. I think that they just work really well together to find commonalities and really spark a connection based on those. And like, I'm not saying that Effie has a deep personal connection with everybody she meets. I'm saying that everybody Effie meets thinks they have a deep personal connection with her. She's just one of those people. We've all met them and it's wonderful. They're wonderful. But they don't know who we are. They've forgotten us already. We've given them what they wanted. Okay, her other placement here is her Pluto. Her connections are ultimately the reason for the biggest change in her life, the downfall of her nation and her loss of social capital. Meaning her connection to Haymitch and the other District 12 tributes, Katniss, Peeta, and the rebels are the reason that her life fully upends itself because her country is no longer the way it was. So she no longer has the social status that she tried really hard to gain. I think in later years she tried less hard and maybe it was easier to give up then. But, you know, a young Effie probably would have been gobsmacked and heartbroken. with Pisces, or with Pluto in the 11th house, it is a remark on how society changes entirely in her lifetime, moving towards a more empathetic and pure manner of governance with that Pisces influence. Really, truly, I think a pretty good placement. Also, there's something to be said here about how her connections can phase in and out of her life really quickly. But the ones that stay tend to be lifelong connections and very intimate, very deep. So now we move on. Wait, do we move on? Yes, we move on. She has one placement left. My favorite. It's her Saturn. Her Saturn's in the 12th house in Aries. This is giving just like a sort of self-oppression, you know? It's self-inflicted cage. She doesn't have to conform to society, but she does. And it's like she really wants to for some reason. She could be a legendary crash out if she wanted to, but I think that she's scared of being aggressive and demanding. Something in her youth told her to be scared of that. And the way that Panem is in fiction, in canon, makes me think that it's because she's a woman. But I think that this little Aries piece of her shows whenever she scolds anyone. That is mahogany. I like you better sober. Like she can be quite a sassy, snappy little queen. But I do think that this placement has more to do with her suppressing really, her sense of self and her true, authentic self. Yes, she likes who she is and she likes the things she does, but I think Effie has a really hard time living for Effie, and that's what this placement is indicative of. But who knows? She has a whole life to live after the end of the games. Isn't that beautiful? You'll love to hear it, folks. Give a round of applause for Miss Effie Trinket. And let me do some plugs really quick. So, as I mentioned at the top of the episode, please follow astrofic.jpg on Instagram if you have not. Also look for AstroFic on Substack. And just generally keep an eye out for me and other things coming your way. Yeah, I think that's it. So thanks for listening, guys. You've been listening to AstroFic, your favorite astrology podcast hosted by me, Celeste V. If you're listening on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please don't forget to leave a rating and review. If you're one of our new YouTube listeners, please leave a like and a comment. We'll see you next time. Thank you. Love you. Bye.